Zen Talks, where we decode Zoho Books one question at a time. Today we are diving into something a lot of growing businesses struggle with but don't always act on time: the accounting system. If you have ever felt that your current accounting system is slowing you down, this episode is for you. And to break this all down, we have Mr. Gerald with us, our in-house Zoho Books expert. Hi Jerry, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you, Dipti?
I'm doing great too.
Pretty excited about this one. And honestly, this is a conversation a lot of businesses avoid until things start to actually start breaking out.
Exactly. So let's start simple as always.
Okay.
So when does a business actually realize that it's time to move to something like Zoho Books?
Usually pretty late. So most businesses start with basic tools, sometimes even spreadsheets, and it works. It works beautifully in the beginning actually, but as they grow, cracks start showing up everywhere. You will see things like manual invoicing, errors in data entry, reports taking forever, and suddenly finances becomes a bottleneck instead of a supported function.
Okay, so it's not just about upgrading systems, so it's about fixing inefficiencies, right?
True. Migration shouldn't be a technical decision, it's a business decision. And common triggers are outdated systems, lack of automations, poor reporting, and zero integration with other tools like CRM or inventory could be.
Okay, so the integration part you mentioned is very huge, I believe, because I have seen teams literally copy-paste data between different tools.
Yeah, and that's where things go actually wrong. So data silos, duplication errors, it's actually a pretty mess. So that's where something like Zoho Books stands out in the first specific ways.
Okay.
So it's not just accounting, it connects with your entire business ecosystem itself.
Okay, so let's talk about the benefit side. So why is like so many businesses and SMBs actually moving to Zoho Books?
First thing, blindly, I would say cloud access.
Okay.
You are not tied to a system in one office. You can check your finance anytime, anywhere. That's a non-negotiable today because it is very important, especially with the remote teams.
Okay, because even I'll agree on that. Flexibility is expected from everyone now.
Yes, and the second thing on my head, I would say that it's automation, because things like invoice generation, payment reminders, bank reconciliations, even the tax calculation also, these should be and it should get automated. And being honest, if your system or your team is still doing this manually, you are wasting a lot of time and inviting a lot of errors to be coming up.
Okay, that's blunt but true.
It is, and that's a reality also. And the third thing which I would say is the real-time insights.
Okay.
You're not waiting till end of the month to understand what is happening with the cash flow. You can track profit, expenses, everything instantly itself.
So if I'm not wrong, this is something that directly impacts the decision making.
Oh, of course, yes, it do. So faster data is basically means the better decisions. So and then there is integration, CRM, inventory, payment gateways. It all connects into one system. No more jumping between different tools or different systems itself. Then.
Okay, that was a very big advantage of Zoho Books, if I'm not wrong. And what about the compliance part, especially for Indian businesses?
That's actually a strong point, I would say, because Zoho Book support things like GST and compliance out of the box itself. So plus it's secure since it's a cloud-based system.
Okay, that sounds great. So let's be real for a while. Migration isn't a plug and play. So what should businesses actually think before making the move?
Okay, so this is where most people actually, I would think, it mess ups. So first thing what we have to do is the data quality.
Okay.
So if your existing data is messy, your new system will also continue the same flow. Migration doesn't fix the bad data itself then.
So clean before move.
Perfect. So remove all your duplicate data, verify the records, organize everything. That itself builds a structure. And second thing is the timings. Don't migrate during the peak season of your business activity, because that's when you will start facing all your disruptions at the same time.
Understood. That's a mistake that I have seen happening with most of the clients we deal with.
Very true. We have got a lot of clients in the same situations also, but we do manage all those by end of the day. And the final tool, I would say that the tool compatibility, because you have to check if your existing system integrates smoothly. If not, you will need APIs or custom solutions itself. You have to think about.
And that adds complexity and cost.
True. So speaking of cost, don't just look at the subscription pricings.
Okay.
Think about the setup, customization, training, and support. So the back end of it is very important.
Okay, so I believe that's where people underestimate the investment in the first place.
Very true itself. And then they start blaming the software as the time goes because of the investment. And also the team readiness. If your team isn't trained for that particular tool, even if the best system is there in that organization, things will fall.
That's a really big one because people resist change.
Always they do, which is why training is not optional. It is very important and critical.
So before we go into this training part, let's just step back a bit. So
Okay.
how should a business evaluate their current accounting system before deciding to migrate?
It's pretty simple actually. So ask uncomfortable questions. Ask what's in your mind. So what's not working, where are the delays happening, and how often the errors are. So can your system handle the overall growth which is there? Can you generate reports very quickly? So these questions will give you a little more answers in yourself.
What if the answer of most of these questions is no?
And I would say that you already know what to do. Okay, so do a proper data audit. Clean data will give you a smoother migration. Messy data is a long-term problem later on as you grow.
Okay, so let's talk about integrations again. So because modern businesses don't run on one tool nowadays.
Yeah, you have got CRM for sales, inventory systems, payment gateways, HR tools, and much more.
Exactly.
And yeah, Zoho Books works really well with every ecosystem of Zoho, which makes the integration very clean and smooth.
So let's say we are not someone who's fully into Zoho. So Zoho Books is still valid to use for us?
Yeah, they need to first we need to do is to like check the compatibility or use middlewares. So, but ignoring the integration is a mistake. You will just recreate the same inefficiency back to back then.
Okay, that's understandable. So now coming back to the training part, what's the right approach you suggest?
Structured onboarding without any shortcuts itself.
Okay.
You need a proper session, documentation, and internal champions. So people who take the ownership is much important in that situation.
Yeah, with people like that, I would say adoption is much more smoother.
It is going to be very easy. So that is true. So and we do have a lot of resources available regarding these tools also, and we also do provide educator corporate training also. We do provide, if you want your team to be trained in this particular application, we do provide that. And because theory doesn't help, and teams need the practical sessions itself.
True. So let's address the elephant in the room challenges.
Okay.
So what usually goes wrong during migration?
Plenty of things goes wrong. Okay, so one thing will be the data migration issue itself. So the either data get lost or it's completely inaccurate.
Okay, that sounds risky.
It is, which is why validation and backups are non-negotiable. So there's also a resistance to change. So employees don't like new systems. Okay.
That's very common human nature. Okay, you can't.
It is. So communications and training solve that issue there.
Okay.
So, and integration issue, that is another one. Tools don't connect properly. So we need to figure out that part also then.
So which brings us back to planning.
That is true. And the fourth one, I would say that it could be the downtime. So if the planning is not done well, the operation also get disrupted.
Timings again.
Correct. So, and one last thing which is there would be the compliance concern. So especially with taxes, you need to configure everything correctly and verify reports after the migration also.
Okay, so basically most problems are avoidable if
100%. Migration fails because of the poor planning itself, as I told before, not because of the software itself.
That's a strong statement.
But it's a reality.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. But as always, before we wrap this up, if you had to say one thing to businesses thinking about migrating to Zoho Books, what would it be?
I would say don't treat it like a software switch, treat it like a business upgrade itself. So if you plan it right, clean your data and train your team and think for the long term. You will actually see the real impact happening at that time.
Love that. So yeah, if your accounting system is slowing you down, maybe it's time to rethink things. And if you want expert help, that's exactly what we do at Zentegra. We can guide you through the entire process from migration to optimization.
Very true. And trust me, getting it right the first time saves you a lot of headaches later on.
That's it for today, guys. And if this episode helped you rethink your current setup, share it with someone who needs it. And this is Deepthi and Jerry signing off. See you in the next one.